Hello everyone, my name is Killer Snake, and today we're going to be drawing one of the most infamous and probably most controversial fights from the Jurassic series. The fight between the Spinosaurus and the Tyrannosaurus Rex from JP3. I remember the huge controversy growing up from this matchup. I know people were very, very angry. But for me, it was always fun as a kid. I loved watching it. I thought it was really epic. And today, we are going to get into it and start drawing it. So if you want to follow along, enjoy the process, just sit back, listen, and we are going to get into it right now. So right off the hop in this, you're going to notice I'm actually tracing the original drawing, which isn't going to be used for the final drawing. You're going to see I put it in the top left. And it's actually used as a reference. I just used it so that I could understand the form better. Because the original picture was very blurry on Google Images, because obviously there's a lot of like motion blur and stuff. So I kind of just like tried to break it down and give myself a better reference for what the shapes actually were in the drawing. So that when I went to draw this myself, I had a basis to kind of go off of. And then I pulled the scene from the movie and just started drawing from that again. But yeah, no, it's not like, it's just like for yourself and you're trying to learn and trying to study. I don't really see an issue in tracing as long as you don't like use that for the final drawing itself, or if it's just like for practice for you to kind of understand shape language, how things are working in perspective and that sort of thing. Which for this, it was just really to kind of break down the drawing, to really understand what was actually being seen in that shot, so that I was capturing the right perspective, the right forms, the right scaling, and then always having that reference to be able to turn on and off, just to be able to look back on and make sure that like the details are correct and getting the scales in the right places and getting the wrinkles in the correct spots, you know, fold the skins. Like the Spino there, you can see very much like its neck is being clamped onto by the T-Rex. So I wanted to make sure I was getting like the cuts in the right spot, the way that neck's kind of twisting a little as it's roaring and trying to like push itself back up after just being shoved into the ground. You can see here, I'm doing a little bit of a different process from the last video. I'm actually going ahead and starting to add some of those colors a little earlier on, starting to kind of block in some of those leaf details and where they're going to be. See, I'm adding some of that blood, adding the trees. They're a lot more silhouette and not super in focus in the actual shots, so I'm not super concerned about like really high detail on those trees or on those like back foliage and stuff, because once you go in after the fact and add a little blur, it's just not going to be where your eye is drawn. You're definitely going to be looking at the dinosaurs in the foreground right here. So you can see I'm going in, I'm adding more additional details, I'm adding some scale work, I'm adding more wrinkle details, and just kind of like slowly building that up while also kind of messing around with the color details, adding some shadows, adding a little bit of highlights. You can see for this picture I was using a lot more kind of gritty brushes, trying to just get a lot of noise because the shot in the actual film, I believe Jurassic Park 3 came out in 2003. I don't believe they had 4K resolution back then, so if you look at the shots, there's definitely a little bit of some noise and grain in those shots. So I wanted the drawing to kind of feel that way. So I was intentionally using these more gritty brushes to kind of put this together, make it a little more painterly, make it feel a little bit more accurate and textured to the way you see it in the film. The Rex here, you can see I'm starting to add a little bit more color. I just painted in that eye. I'm adding some of the folds on the snout, some of those wrinkles and scale works kind of around the eye itself. Kind of really working on the ridges, trying to make sure that the form's right, getting that together. Adding a little bit more texture. I decided the green was a little darker. I didn't really like the green. I thought it was too light, so I kind of darkened it up a little bit. Still having those other layers applied as on the clipping mask, so those didn't change. Everything is its own element, just like in the last video that I uploaded, so I have full control over the drawing. Everything's its own element. Any like the patterns, that's its own layer. That brown would be its own layer. The gray would be its own layer. The highlights, the shadows, the line work would be its own layer. If anything I want to ever go back and change, I like having the option to do that, right? So, because sometimes like when you're getting started in a drawing, Some people will just kind of do it all in one layer. They take a really painterly approach, and like if that works for you, nothing wrong with that. It's just one of those things. Like for myself personally, I can be indecisive sometimes, and I want to be able to fix those things. You can see here I put a black background because I just wanted to focus on the dinosaurs here. I do this a lot in my drawings to see if my highlights are really standing out. You can see I was adding a little bit of motion blur on the snout, just kind of testing how that was going to look. Because I did notice, like obviously in the actual shot of the film, lots and lots of motion blur, but the dinosaurs are very dynamic in motion. So I wanted that feel, so I actually duplicated the whole drawing and applied that over top and just gave a little bit of blur on front of the Spinosaurus, just to make him feel like he's kind of really rearing back up. You see him going in on the Rex's head again, adding some more scale work, working more on that eye ridge, tweaking some of the lighting in the background, and then the torso really getting in there, trying to get those wrinkles and folds. I'm really trying to understand what the form of the T-Rex is. The torso, especially here, a lot of curvature, so any lines that I'm drawing, or they're curving with the form of the body. Nothing's ever a straight line, nothing's ever a perfect line. You can see pulling up my reference, just trying to see like where some of those bigger scales, where some of those shadows are, to make sure I'm capturing the feel of the T-Rex from that film as accurately as possible, like that I can do. And now I'm going in, you can see I blocked in some of those larger scales around the back of the jaw there. I'm going in, I'm drawing some of these like smaller scales at the back, but I'm making sure, and I did this intentionally, that on the front of the snout I actually sketched in some larger scales because as it's going back in space, they should shrink with perspective because it's farther away. So I wanted you to have that feel in the drawing. So some areas got bigger scales, and as you fade off, you get smaller scales further back. See on the Spinosaurus, I'm really getting in there too. We're adding all those scales on the neck, really getting into the fine detail, along the shoulder, the arm, the throat, much larger scales, kind of like where the body sort of stretches out. It's kind of got like that crocodilian feel, almost like armored scutes along the top of the neck and along the base of the spine. And you can see here, so now all the scale work is actually in place. I'm duplicating these layers on the Spinosaurus just to kind of make it darker, make it pop more. You can see even the T-Rex, it was a little lighter initially. I decided it was a little too light initially just so that I could see what I was doing. So I actually kind of darkened that scale work layer. I'm going in, I'm drawing in more scales. See, I'm kind of pausing and thinking about the background a little bit. I'm like, okay, let's start sort of sketching this a little more. Let's kind of start to see what this picture is going to really look like. So I painted in more of those bushes. I painted some of the grooves in the trees. Not super detailed, but enough that like if you're looking at it, it's noticeable that there is differences in the wood. It's not just flat, one basic shape. And we're going back in on the Rex again, and we're just adding some more highlights on the ridge of the head. I'm going in and adding more wrinkles, more scale work. You see, I'm trying to think about the form of the jaw here, so I'm actually kind of drawing them a little differently. So trying to make sure it's curving with the form, and we're adjusting some of those colors, adding a little bit more shades of green, some brown, some stripes. You can see I'm adding more shadow along that ridge, those kind of like bumps along the top of the Jurassic Park Rex's snout. It's very kind of these bumps that it has, so I wanted to get the shading in there, make sure that's kind of popping out and noticeable. And we're going in, you can see finishing up the scales. So almost all the scale work is done at this point, and now I'm probably going to be duplicating these layers for the scales, blurring that, making sure there's kind of shadows in between those scales, so they're not just flat scales. And then you can see I'm going in, I'm adding that spray paint texture just to get that little bit of grittiness, make it dirty, make it not perfect. And yeah, more shadow work now. A lot of the final process here is really just highlights and shadows and making some of those scales pop off the body, making those wrinkles really pop off. Trying to figure out where's my light direction, where's the light going to be the strongest on the dinosaur and the subjects here. See the Rex really starting to look good. He's really coming together. I'm starting to focus more on the Spino. I'm going in, I'm highlighting those scales so they're not so flat. It's going along the whole body. It's a very tedious process, but like sometimes it just gives the best results. It's really working on the shoulder now and the arm and the neck. See, again, I'm adding a little bit more blur, really trying to get some depth of field, get some motion, and just get this whole thing coming together. But really at this point you can see, like, I'm just going in, darkening some spots, making some areas lighter, just kind of fine-tuning. So I'm adding a little bit more leaves to the background, just trying to get some more texture throughout the whole picture. And then we're adding a overlay, that blue overlay over the whole background, kind of fading that off a little bit. And then there we go. The drawing at this point is pretty much done, some liquefied, tweaking in a few spots. And then there you have it. This is the final result. I was very happy at the time of how this turned out. There's definitely some more kind of texture work that could have been done, but overall, I think this was a good attempt at recreating that shot from JP3. If you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, tell me what else you'd like to see, and if you want to support what I do, follow Killer Snake over on Instagram. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.